It's 2002. A Dodge Dakota sits idling in a driveway somewhere in the Midwest. The engine sounds smooth, clean, modern, not like the old-school rumbling V8s people were used to. But then, a faint ticking starts. At first, it's easy to ignore. Just a little noise. Maybe bad fuel. Maybe nothing. A few thousand miles later, that ticking turns into a knock. And then, silence. Because the engine is dead. Blown. Destroyed from the inside out. And here's the part most people don't realize. This wasn't just one bad engine. This was happening everywhere. Across trucks, SUVs, families who trusted Dodge, mechanics who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Dealerships started seeing the same problem walk through their doors over and over again. Different customers, same story, same catastrophic failure. So what went wrong? How did an engine that was supposed to replace Chrysler's legendary Magnum V8s end up becoming one of the most controversial power plants of its time? You think you know this story? Not like this. Because the real failure of the 4.7 PowerTech wasn't just mechanical. It was a perfect storm of engineering decisions, cost-cutting, and timing that couldn't have been worse. And what happened next changed everything. Not just for Chrysler, but for how we think about modern engines entirely. In the late 1990s, Chrysler had a problem. Their old LA-based Magnum engines, the 5.2 and 5.9-liter V8s, were tough, reliable, simple. But they were also outdated. Heavy cast iron blocks, pushrod designs, poor fuel economy, and tightening emissions regulations were closing in fast. The EPA wasn't playing games anymore. California had already set stricter standards. Other states were following. And the old Magnum architecture? It couldn't adapt. Not without massive investment. Not without a complete redesign. Ford had already moved forward with its modular engines, overhead cams, better efficiency, more refinement. GM wasn't far behind. Even Toyota was making moves with their advanced V8 designs. The competition was leaving Chrysler in the dust, and management knew it. Chrysler needed something new, something modern, something that could carry them into the next decade. So they started from scratch. The result was the 4.7-liter PowerTech V8. On paper, it looked like a huge leap forward. This wasn't just an updated Magnum, it was a completely new design. Brand new architecture, new philosophy, new everything. A single overhead cam per bank, aluminum cylinder heads, a cast iron block, and a compact layout that made it lighter and more efficient than the old engines. With a bore of 3.66 inches and a stroke of 340 inches, it displaced 287 cubic inches, 4.7 liters exactly. The engineers were proud of what they'd created, a modern engine that could compete with anything Detroit was building. Compression ratio sat around 9.0.1 in early versions. Power output, around 235 horsepower and 295 lb-ft of torque. Not insane numbers, but respectable for the time, and more importantly, smoother, quieter, more refined. Test drivers noticed immediately. The throttle response felt sharper. The acceleration was linear. The noise, vibration, and harshness levels way down compared to the old Magnum. It was designed to replace the old guard, to be the future of Dodge trucks. And at first, it worked. The 4.7 showed up in the Dodge Dakota, then the Durango, then the Ram 1500. Even the Jeep Grand Cherokee got it for a few years. Customers liked how it felt. It revved higher than the old pushrod engines. It sounded cleaner. It felt modern. Journalists praised it. Motor Trend called it refined. Car and Driver noted the improved refinement. For a moment, it looked like Chrysler had pulled it off. Like they'd finally caught up to Ford and GM. Like they had a winner on their hands. But there was a problem. And it was buried deep inside the engine, where nobody could see it, where it would only reveal itself after tens of thousands of miles. The PowerTech used a chain-driven overhead cam system. That's not unusual. Plenty of modern engines use timing chains instead of belts. They last longer, they're stronger. They don't need regular replacement like belts do. But the way Chrysler designed the lubrication system, That's where things started to go wrong. Instead of a massive oiling system like the old Magnum engines, the 4.7 relied on tighter tolerances, smaller oil passages, more precise oil flow. Everything was calculated down to the millimeter. Computer models predicted perfect oil distribution. Engineers tested prototypes under controlled conditions. And in those conditions, it worked beautifully. In theory, this improves efficiency. Less oil sloshing around means less parasitic drag, less weight, better fuel economy. In reality, it leaves almost no margin for error. If the oil isn't perfect, things start to break. And here's where the nightmare begins. Owners started reporting sludge, not just a little buildup, thick, black deposits building up inside the engine, like tar, like someone had poured molasses into the crankcase, clogging oil passages, starving critical components. And when that happens, the top end suffers first. Camshafts, lifters, valve train components, they start to wear fast. The ticking noise owners heard, that was the sound of metal-on-metal contact, lifters that weren't getting enough oil, cam lobes starting to wear down, rockers running dry. Metal shavings begin to circulate through the oil system, and then it gets worse, because once those tiny oil passages clog, the bottom end gets hit. Oil pressure drops, sometimes gradually, sometimes all at once. The crankshaft bearings start to overheat. They're designed to float on a thin film of oil, just a few thousandths of an inch. When that oil film breaks down, the bearing material starts to melt, literally. And at high RPM, they fail catastrophically, a sound like marbles in a blender. Then a knock that shakes the whole truck, then nothing, just a seized engine. Mechanics would pull these engines apart and find something shocking. Oil pans filled with sludge, sometimes an inch thick at the bottom. Bearings that looked like they'd been burned. Cam lobes completely wiped out. Flat spots where there should have been smooth curves. One technician reportedly said it looked like someone poured tar into the engine. Another described opening a valve cover and finding nothing but black paste. These weren't just worn engines, they were destroyed. But why was this happening? Was it bad design, bad maintenance, or something else entirely? The answer is complicated. See, Chrysler had designed the 4.7 PowerTech with very tight oil change requirements. They recommended oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. In the owner's manual, clear as day. But here's the problem. Most drivers didn't follow that. They didn't even read the manual. They treated it like the old Magnum engines. Engines that could survive neglect. Engines that could go 7,000, even 10,000 miles between oil changes and still keep running. Their dad's truck ran like that. Their neighbor's old Ram had 200,000 miles and had never seen an oil change before 7,500 miles. So why would this be different? The 4.7? It couldn't. Not even close. Because those tight oil passages and high operating temperatures meant the oil broke down faster. Much faster, especially with conventional oil. The old dinosaur oil that most people were still using. So when owners skipped oil changes or used low-quality oil, sludge formed quickly. Within 10,000 miles, deposits would start. By 20,000 miles, passages were restricting. By 50,000 miles, damage was often irreversible. And once it started, there was no stopping it. No additive could clean it out. No flush could save it. But here's the twist most people don't expect. Even well-maintained engines sometimes failed. Owners who changed their oil religiously, who used synthetic, who followed every recommendation in the book. And that's where the real controversy began. Some engineers later pointed to the PCV system, the positive crankcase ventilation setup. It was supposed to remove moisture and gases from inside the engine, keep things clean, prevent pressure buildup, but in certain conditions, it didn't work well enough. Short trips in cold weather were the worst. The engine never fully warmed up. Moisture would build up, condensation from combustion, water vapor that couldn't escape, mix with oil, and accelerate sludge formation. It would emulsify, create that mayonnaise-like substance under the oil cap. That's not just ugly, it's deadly for an engine. Combine that with high engine temperatures, and you had a perfect recipe for internal contamination. The engine would run hot, break down the oil, but also trap moisture, a contradiction that created the worst possible scenario. And then there was the cooling system. The 4.7 ran hotter than the old Magnum engines, significantly hotter. That helped emissions. Hotter combustion means cleaner exhaust. It improved efficiency, better fuel economy numbers, better EPA ratings. But it also pushed the oil to its limits. Break it down faster, thin it out, reduce its ability to protect moving parts. Oil that's rated for 5,000 miles at normal temperatures might only be good for 3,000 in the 4.7. So even if you were doing everything right, you were still closer to the edge than you thought. And if you missed one oil change or went 1,000 miles over, you might have just killed your engine. And then things got worse. By the mid-2000s, reports of engine failure were everywhere. Online forums exploded with complaints. Dakotas, Durangos, Rams, even the Jeep Grand Cherokees with the 4.7, people sharing their horror stories, posting photos of destroyed engines, warning others. Some engines were failing as early as 70,000 miles. That's barely broken in for a truck engine. Others made it past 100,000, but not much further. A few lucky ones hit 150,000, but those were rare, and when they failed, they didn't just lose power, they died completely. Timing chains would jump, skip teeth on the sprockets, valves would collide with pistons, bent valves, cracked pistons, sometimes even cracked heads, bearings would seize. Rod knock that sounded like a hammer inside the block. Engines would lock up solid, mid-drive, on the highway, without warning. And repairs, not cheap. A full rebuild could cost $3,000 to $5,000. A replacement engine, even more. Anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 installed for a truck that might only be worth $8,000 at that point. For many owners, it wasn't worth it. Cars were scrapped. Trucks were sold at a loss, traded in as non-running. Reputation? Damaged. Resale values plummeted. People started avoiding the 4.7 PowerTech like the plague. If you were shopping for a used Dakota or Durango, you looked for the V6 or you waited for a Hemi model. But Chrysler didn't just sit back and watch, they tried to fix it. In 2008, they introduced an updated version of the 4.7, sometimes called the high output or HO version, higher compression. Around 9.7.1, power increased to about 310 horsepower and 330 lb-ft of torque, a significant bump. They redesigned parts of the cylinder heads, improved airflow, larger valves, better port design, tweaked the combustion chamber, changed the piston design for better efficiency. But more importantly, they made changes to reduce sludge issues, better valve cover ventilation, redesigned baffles, improved PCV routing, better flow characteristics, stronger internal components, upgraded bearings, better materials in critical wear areas, and for a while, it seemed to help. Failure rates dropped, not to zero, but noticeably. Performance improved. The power increase made the trucks feel genuinely quick. Reviews started getting better, but by then, the damage was already done. Because once an engine gets a reputation, it's almost impossible to shake. And the 4.7 PowerTech, it had become known as a risk. Not a legend, not a workhorse, a gamble, a dice roll. You might get lucky, or you might be stranded. So how did it compare to its rivals? At the time, Ford's 4.6-liter modular V8 was making similar power, around 231 to 260 horsepower depending on configuration, similar torque numbers, similar displacement, but it had a reputation for durability. You could find F-150s with 200,000 miles on the original 4.6, still running strong, still reliable. GM's 5.3-liter Vortec, even stronger, around 285 to 295 horsepower, more displacement, more torque, and capable of going well over 200,000 miles with basic maintenance. Some hit 300,000, some even more. The Dodge 4.7, it could perform, it could feel smooth, it could deliver good power when it was running right, but it demanded perfection, perfect oil, perfect maintenance intervals, perfect driving conditions. And most people didn't even know that. The owner's manual mentioned oil changes, but it didn't scream, "Your engine will die if you're late." So what happens when you build an engine that requires perfect conditions and give it to real-world drivers? People who tow in the summer heat, who make short trips in winter, who forget oil changes, who use whatever oil is on sale. You can probably guess. But the truth is even worse, because this wasn't just about engineering, it was about timing. The early 2000s were a transition period. Oil technology was improving. Synthetics were becoming more common, but they were still expensive, still seen as unnecessary by most drivers. Many drivers were still using conventional oil, the same stuff their fathers used. Maintenance habits were changing, but not fast enough. Oil change intervals were stretching. 10,000 miles was becoming normal. Manufacturers were advertising it. Quick lube shops were promoting it. And manufacturers were pushing engines harder than ever before. Higher temperatures, tighter tolerances, more complexity, variable valve timing, more sensors, more things that could go wrong. The 4.7 PowerTech landed right in the middle of that shift, too advanced for old habits, but not robust enough to survive them. It needed the maintenance schedule of a European luxury car, but it was being used like an American work truck. And that's what made it fail so spectacularly. Not because it was completely broken, but because it lived on the edge every single day. One missed oil change away from disaster. By 2013, Chrysler finally pulled the plug. The 4.7 PowerTech was discontinued, replaced by newer engines like the Pentastar V6 and the Hemi V8 lineup. The 3.6-liter Pentastar made nearly as much power, more efficient, more reliable. The Hemi 5.7, way more power, better reputation, more power, better efficiency, and most importantly, better durability. The Hemi could take abuse. It was overbuilt, old school tough with modern technology. Production of the 4.7 ended quietly. No celebration, no farewell, no commemorative edition, just gone, phased out, forgotten. And today, the 4.7 sits in a strange place in automotive history, not completely terrible. Some people daily drive them without issue, but far from great, and nowhere near legendary. Some owners swear by it. They'll tell you theirs has 180,000 miles, runs perfect, never had a problem. Others will never touch one again. They'll tell you about being stranded, about the $6,000 repair bill, about trading in a truck they loved because the engine was junk. And that divide tells you everything you need to know. Because in the end, the 4.7 PowerTech didn't fail because it was weak. It failed because it demanded too much. From people who didn't know the rules had changed. Tight tolerances, high temperatures, sensitive oil systems. It was a modern engine, dropped into an old world. An engine designed for synthetic oil in an era of conventional. An engine designed for perfect maintenance in a world of good enough. And that mismatch destroyed it, destroyed its reputation, destroyed thousands of trucks, and destroyed Chrysler's credibility for years. So here's the real takeaway. The 4.7 PowerTech wasn't just an engine failure. It was a warning, a lesson, a glimpse into the future of automotive engineering, where precision matters, where maintenance isn't optional, where even a small mistake can cost you everything, and where the gap between engineering excellence and real-world durability can be the difference between a legend and a disaster.